Roe v. Wade could soon be overturned. Election fraud gets real, and the January 6th hearings begin. Then more on this week's headline. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Let's start off this week with some good news. 18 rectal cancer patients are all now in remission after taking an experimental drug for 6 months. This is the first time in history every subject in a drug trial like this has come out of it cancer-free. Obviously, this is only one small trial, but it's a promising step toward finally curing rectal cancer. However, the study was only done in people who had a type of cancer with a specific genetic mutation, so it's unlikely to work for all cancers, which means we still have to pay attention to the biggest risks for getting cancer: cigarettes, asbestos, and political arguments on Twitter. Social media sites should probably get a Surgeon General's warning. Speaking of things people argue about on Twitter, abortion. The Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling in the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization sometime this month or in early July. This is the case where a leaked document showed the court was planning on overturning Roe v. Wade. Everyone is waiting with bated breath as to what their decision will be. And this week, the court didn't rule on it. Man, they're seriously going to make us all wait another week? The last time anyone's been this nervous waiting on the results of something was, ironically, a pregnancy test. I hope the court doesn't make us wait much longer because people are going a little nuts over all the anticipation. The White House is making preparations for if and when Roe v. Wade is overturned. And activists are staging demonstrations, with one chaining his neck to the fence of the Supreme Court building, and others are planning on blocking the entrances to the Supreme Court in an effort to shut it down. No matter what happens, I hope pro-choice activists can find some level of solace in remembering at least we're not Poland, because in Poland there's near total ban on abortion in the whole country, and the Polish government this week was accused of creating a pregnancy register. This would potentially be used to keep track of women who become pregnant and use surveillance to prosecute women who are no longer pregnant, which could unfairly target women who had miscarriages. It's shocking to learn that such an authoritarian, dystopian, Handmaid's Tale-esque measure is being taken by an EU nation such as Poland, and not China. Never go full China. That should be the motto of the EU. Speaking of people who are upset with the Supreme Court, an armed man was arrested outside the home of Justice Brett Kavanaugh this week. He wanted to kill Kavanaugh because he said he was upset about how Kavanaugh might rule on cases about gun control and Roe v. Wade. Even though he came armed with a gun and a tactical knife, he ended up calling 911 and turning himself in after seeing U.S. Marshals outside Kavanaugh's home. And he's now being charged with attempting to murder a U.S. judge. Speaking of keeping count of things, voting. An Arizona judge rejected the state's Republican Party's efforts to block mail-in voting ahead of the upcoming elections. In 1991, Arizona passed a law that allows any voter in the state to request an absentee ballot to vote by mail. In the 2020 election, this is how 89% of voters cast their ballots. The Arizona State Republican Party challenged this law, saying it was unconstitutional and that in-person voting at the polls on a fixed date, Election Day, is the only constitutional manner of voting in Arizona. In his ruling, the judge wrote, "The laws are far from perfect, and nobody anticipated 30 years ago that approximately 90% of Arizona voters would vote by mail-in ballot during a pandemic, but these laws are not in violation of the Arizona Constitution." What does he mean no one could have anticipated that? Forget a pandemic. No one wants to go outside in Arizona, period. The devil went down to Georgia because even he thought Arizona was too hot. Although voting by mail isn't that effective, since in Arizona, the mailboxes are melting. Yes, this is a real picture. In Arizona, telling people to go to hell is solid advice for cooling off. At any rate, you really shouldn't worry about it because there's no voter fraud in Arizona. The voter fraud is in Pennsylvania. This week, former U.S. Congressman Michael Ozzie Myers from Philadelphia pleaded guilty to election fraud. He admitted to orchestrating schemes to fraudulently stuff the ballot boxes for specific Democratic candidates in 5 different Pennsylvania elections. Among other schemes, Myers would literally drive an elections judge to a polling place on each election day, instructing her on which candidates should get how much of a fraudulent pump. The good news is he's finally been caught and voter fraud is now completely over. More after the break. Welcome back. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has chosen not to attend the Summit of the Americas. His reason? Because Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela are excluded. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre explained why these countries weren't invited, saying, "We just don't believe dictators should be invited. We don't regret that, and the president will stand by his principle." Mexican President López Obrador said, "I'm not going to the summit because not all American countries are invited, and I believe the need to change the policy that has been in place for centuries. The exclusion, the desire to dominate without any reason, the disrespect of countries' sovereignty, and the independence of each country." Yeah, you should respect the independence of those dictators and their right to not allow independence for their citizens. This isn't much of a surprise since López Obrador himself has been called authoritarian, an autocrat, and that under him democracy is crumbling. So he might just be sitting out because he knows that there's a chance he might not be invited. This is like him saying, "We don't need your stupid summit. We'll have our own summit with blackjack and no democracy." I'm glad to see Biden taking a tough stance against dictators. But when it comes to the U.S. military, his main focus seems to be making sure they're more sensitive to people's feelings. Analysts say the Biden administration's push for diversity and inclusivity in the military has become detrimental to combat training. Diversity and inclusivity were President Obama's goals and ones Biden seems to be carrying on. According to the president of the Center for Military Readiness, the Biden administration has assigned priority to diversity, inclusion, and equity as the primary criteria. That is a key decision, and from it flows everything else that is problematic. I don't see what the big deal is. Like Obama, I think no matter your gender, race, sexual orientation, or even physical disabilities, everyone should have an equal opportunity to join the armed forces and kill brown people with drones. Now that's a woke military. But why join the military and travel overseas when you can just get shot at home? Over a dozen mass shootings last weekend led to 17 deaths across the country. It seems like there's a mass shooting epidemic right now, or at least the media is making it seem like that given all the coverage. Of course, experts warn that excessive news coverage of mass shootings can lead to even more of them. They call it media contagion. But why worry about that when the ratings are up and Pepsi is paying so much more for ad space? In response to this current wave of mass shootings, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed a massive gun reform bill.
And we're raising the age of semi-automatic weapons so no 18-year-old can walk in on their birthday and walk out with an AR-15. Those days are over. Those days are over.
This new law bans the sale and possession of semi-automatic weapons to anyone under the age of 21. Which means several people on their 21st birthday are going to want to get both drunk and fire off an AR-15. That sounds like a great combo. This law also now requires a license to purchase these weapons. Plus, it bans the sale of body armor to citizens, which is weird, because considering how mass shootings right now are trending faster than wearing hoodies under blazers, I think people should probably start wearing body armor under blazers. Most Democrats are in favor of raising the age to purchase an AR-15 to 21. That includes West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who never agrees with his fellow Democrats on, well, anything. Manchin also said he doesn't even see a need for AR-15s, explaining, "I like to shoot, I like to go out and hunt, I like to go out sports shooting, I do all that, but I've never felt I needed something of that magnitude." In response to this, Republicans said, "You were supposed to be the chosen one, Manchin. You were supposed to help us destroy the Democrats, not join them. Or I guess rejoin them." And after the break, San Francisco's Socialist District Attorney gets kicked out. Welcome back. This week, San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin was recalled by voters by a margin of 61% to 39%. Boudin came under fire for his soft-on-crime stance, which was a platform he ran on to get elected into office. His policies included not prosecuting minor crimes, like shoplifting items worth less than $950. He kept his word, and this led to crime rates in San Francisco skyrocketing. People have essentially been able to just walk into stores, openly take items, and walk out without fear of going to jail. That's the main reason Walgreens closed 11 stores in San Francisco over the past 2 years. But it's not just shoplifting. There's been a huge spike in car break-ins. Don't go to San Francisco tourists, or people might literally steal your puppy. We'd go into more stuff that's going wrong in San Francisco, but that would take a whole episode. Actually, let us know if you'd like us to do that episode in the comments below. Anyway, Chesa Boudin blamed his recall on right-wingers, because as everyone knows, San Francisco voters are so right-wing. Obviously, that's who's to blame for kicking him out. Or possibly even San Francisco liberals don't like living in terror and letting petty criminals run the city. Who knows? You'd think Boudin would have been the perfect candidate for San Francisco. He was a former public defender, which makes sense because his own parents spent most of their lives in prison for murder. They were members of the Weather Underground and were involved in a 1981 armed robbery that killed 2 police officers. Boudin also speaks great Spanish, so well that he used to work as a translator at the presidential palace in Venezuela. And really, when Boudin was district attorney, all he did was the things he said he was going to do when he was running, like be soft on crime. So why did people elect Boudin in the first place? Because no one ever expects politicians to keep their word. When you vote for someone, you should assume they'll do the opposite of what they promised during the campaign. He vows to increase inflation and enter more unnecessary wars? We're going to live in a utopia under this guy. The House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riot began showing its findings this week. These hearings will attempt to answer a very important question, and that question is, does anyone care about these hearings? At least that's the question several media companies are asking, because the most important thing about this committee's 17-month-long investigation into an event many called a seditious conspiracy is obviously the ratings. It's being shown during prime time, after all. Because the real danger to America isn't a group of angry citizens storming the Capitol. It's news stations not getting enough of that sweet Pepsi ad revenue. If they want people to care, instead of holding hearings, they should have made it into a movie starring Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Then America wouldn't be able to shut up about it, no matter how much you wish they would. Now, since we're recording this episode on Friday morning, we haven't had a chance to actually look at the evidence presented by the hearing. Let us know if you'd like us to do a longer episode about it. Speaking of people no one can ever shut up about, Elon Musk. Yes, I'm guilty of this too. Elon Musk has threatened to walk away from his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter. So he spent a lot of time on Twitter, got frustrated, and is thinking of walking away? For a guy supposedly living in the future, he's just reliving what I did in 2016. Musk is considering backing out of the deal, which would cost him a $1 billion fee, due to what he says is Twitter thwarting his requests to learn more about the user base. He believes Twitter has a lot more bots than the company is letting on. Twitter says less than 5% of their users are spam bots, but a recent study showed it was double that, at 10%. According to one of Musk's lawyers, as Twitter's prospective owner, Mr. Musk is clearly entitled to the requested data to enable him to prepare for transitioning Twitter's business to his ownership and to facilitate his transaction financing. To do both, he must have a complete and accurate understanding of the very core of Twitter's business model, its active user base. Oh, if that's what he's after, I can help. Here's an actual photo of Twitter's active user base. I have no idea why I quit in 2016. It seems like so much fun these days. In a statement, Twitter responded, Twitter has and will continue to cooperatively share information with Musk to consummate the transaction in accordance with the terms of the merger agreement. Good, nothing to worry about. The giant tech company says it will give the billionaire access to everyone's information. I'm not worried. I'm not even being sarcastic. Mostly because there are already billionaires who have access to everyone's information. One more, and I'm pretty sure I get a free sandwich. And since they already know everything about me, they'll know to get me a BLT on sourdough, hold the mayonnaise. Thanks, big brothers. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/America Uncovered. Contribute $1 or more per episode. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Or join our exclusive censorship-free social media community on Locals. Check out americauncovered.locals.com. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.